Hello everybody, RegiTime here, and due to requests we're going to do some 10-0 speed poker 6 max today. And we're not doing Zoom because I think Snap's a better game. I don't really advocate playing speed poker for most players, especially if you're like a recreational losing player. I think just playing regular tables and having HUD stats and just being able to handpick your opponents a little bit better is going to be much better for your overall experience and win rate. Your overall poker experience, I mean, and enjoyment. But you know, people like speed poker, so that's the content we'll make. I personally, when I play these games from time to time, I think they're okay. I think we can win in them. I'm not saying they're unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination. I just personally, as has been well documented before, I prefer playing regular tables. But these games are popular, aren't they? And they do make it much more convenient for creating content. My 888 caption doesn't appear to be working at the moment, so just going to pause and go and put that right, I think. What the fuck's going on with this? Why is it not working? Let's close it and open it again, see if that does any good. Now it's working. So we're going to run out with like a few 30-minute videos, then move on to something else from the lucky bag. I mean, this feels really weak just to check fold here, but we don't have anything like no pair, no draw. Just two high cards, not even beating ace high. Ace suited could be an overlimp here, or it could be an isolation. I think we're going to go with the isolation razor. We managed to fold one of the two limpers, so we haven't really achieved isolation, but never mind. Excuse me. Two overcards, backdoor everything versus this small lead. I think we're going to start with a raise. And we're going to let the sevens go, I think, aren't we? No, we're not. Not for that price. If you bet small again, we'll probably just pay him off. Get say with a 10-8, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. Ten-8 suited under the gun. And we have a fish in the blinds, so we'll open it. I wouldn't usually recommend opening this hand, but with the fish in the blinds, I think it's fine. Make them nuts on the turn. Do we raise here or just call and then call the river? That's the question. I mean, the likelihood is it's just going to be a chop. But if he does have any bluffs, then I think calling and calling the river keeps his bluffs in, whereas raising folds all his bluffs, so we'll go with that route. We are kind of risking a club coming off of the board, pairing and making life uncomfortable. This is just going to be a chop close to 100% of the time. Jack Queen off facing a small 3-bet, but it's Jack Queen off. Suited with call because it just has like way more post-flop playability, but offsuit it's going to get in lots of trouble, and get that out of the way. We're not going to be getting too out of line in these games. I mean, I feel the best way to approach these games is usually just like an excessive leaning towards value betting and not bluffing very often, maybe a few stab arounds in small pots, but we're not going to be like running any super creative, exciting bluffs. Our job is primarily make hands get value, keep pots small when we don't have anything. This is how we exploit these games. I mean, we're going to lose here a lot, but it's one big blind, so it's trivial call, and we win. And he's defending King 2 offsuit, which I'm going to say isn't going to work out too well for him in the long term. So yeah, there's going to be a heavy focus on these games towards like keep pots small when we don't have much, just like don't go out of my way to like fight for small pots with like low equity, and then hopefully still manage to get value when we need it. I mean, it's a very exploitable line if anyone knows that's your strategy, but I'm not sure people are paying too much attention in these games. The odd person will be, but by and large they're just going to be, if they've got something they like, they're not going to fold it. If they've got something they don't like, they're gonna like not stick around. They're gonna fold to like minimal pressure. And I went through a spell of like trying to apply tons of pressure in these games, and yeah, it's better for your red line, but I think for your green line it's negligible. Just waiting to have it, and value betting, it's as good a strategy as any in these like lower stakes, micro stakes games. Let the people around you, either some guys are too aggressive, some guys are too passive, let them do their thing and you just do your own thing. That's my worldview on these games. They're like the lower stakes. There's no need for like any super aggressive, relatively creative lines. I mean, what do we do here? We're a multi-way pot, we've got ace high. There's just literally nothing we can do here. There's no point trying to do much. And we can have like a, not super loose, but reasonably like loose, well not loose, loose would be the wrong word, but like just open whatever we really feel like pre-flop to an extent. Hands that just open stuff that can improve significantly post-flop, and like just be pretty weak tight post-flop, and just look to attack spots where you think your opponents might be like super weak, but you still can't call. So you lost my train of thought here. Yeah, attack spots where you think your opponents are like super weak, but you're even weaker. So I don't know, say you've only got 10 high by the river, but you think your opponent might only have like ace high or king high. You can attack some of those spots, I guess, but you don't want to be like getting out of line too much with the bluffs. We check back this ace 7. Now he like leads pretty big. Ace could be a little bit exploitable, but we're not closing the action, and we've got a river to negotiate, and we've got top pair weak kicker on a pretty coordinated board. We don't want to be like, just, if we're going to be passive on flops in these games, sometimes it can feel like shit, I've got to call down now because I've been passive on the flop. But if you can't really see a way where you're going to be able to call like a sizable river bet too after someone like leads pretty big into 2 players in the turn, sometimes it's better to maybe just tap out early. I know that won't go down well with some guys, but I think it's generally good advice for these games. Some of the advice I give doesn't go down well with regulars, but who come from a more like solver GTO kind of standpoint. But I think using like GTO type styles and solver type styles in these games I just don't think it works. I've tried to go down like the being pretty balanced route, be aggressive, protecting. No, I think just playing your hand pretty much in a vacuum every time and just like playing very exploitably is absolutely a better way to approach the game in these levels. Does it prepare you for playing higher? No, it doesn't really. But you've got to beat the games you're in, and then when you move up, if what you've been doing at the previous level doesn't work, well then you adjust to the next level. Not good trying to play a strategy that beats 50-0 at 10-0. Play the best strategy for 10-0, get to 20-0. If that best strategy for 10-0 still works at 20-0, cool, continue delivering it. If you find that strategy isn't working as well, then you figure out what parts of it aren't working, and then you adjust them. I know lots of guys, and a pretty decent pal I've made recently online, he's very much of, I know what I'm doing at these stakes isn't great, but it's preparing me for higher limits. I disagree with him on that. I mean, it's a matter of opinion, isn't it? But I'm very much of, learn to beat the game you're in, then when you move up, learn to beat that game, you move up, learn to beat that game. Don't try and like say, right, well, I want to play a game that's going to work at, hopefully going to work at higher stakes, and like sacrifice EV at lower stakes, because you might never get there, you just might never get there. Keep it tight, don't pay off, only bluff in really good spots and then get value. It's tried and tested in these games, and it's easily the best way to get the biggest win rate. Pretty dry flop. I think we'll just stab once. To fold out all these like weaker stuff that might bluff us if we check, and then give up. Once he doesn't fold, we're kind of done with it. .5. It's a big open. This 3-bet's just too small. I mean, 6 side's going to be like way behind, but it's just way too small with position. I'm going to check back here. I mean, he doesn't fold a better hand ever, I don't think. Maybe if he's got hands like pocket 7s, pocket 8s, we get them to fold, but you're going to check back and keep the pot small. I mean, he might be like pot controlling with a weak ace. It's 3-bet like a suited wheel ace or something. Pocket kings, pocket jacks will play this way, but just not fold 2, I guess. River 2 pair, which is nice. Now we can go with some value. And we get the call. And he had pocket jacks. So yeah, like I line that hand. I think he probably has to call that river given the line he's taken, given the line we've taken. Kind of unlucky for him that we got there. it's really hard to have a decent win rate in these games because there's just like so many relatively competent regulars in. I'm not saying they're good, but there's so many players in that just aren't giving the money away. It just kind of makes the rake hard to beat. 18 months ago, I thought these like 10-0 games were beatable for like double figures win rates, like maybe up to 10 big blinds, maybe 8. I think now that's coming down. I think like with reduced rewards, with just the general decline in traffic in these games, it seems to be more fish that are drying up than regulars. Fish seem to be going more towards the funky variants and whatever. I think in these games now, if you're just like, obviously the amount of tables you play is going to have an effect on your win rate. I think if I one tabled it, I think we could get close to like 10 big blinds. I think 2 tabling, I'm going to be around 6 maybe, and 3 tabling, I think we're around at 4 possibly. There's not tons of juice in these games, but they're probably decent enough in terms of like relative to other speed poker games. Certainly get more limpers and what have you in these games, are more like relatively weak players than you do in, say, zoom pools or fast forward pools. Do we value bet this river? Can we get called by worse? Maybe ace queen calls. Maybe we get a call from ace queen sometimes. Pure aces is always going to have king jack beat, one would imagine. Ace queen. Reads are on today. Put someone on the jacks and value bet them. Put someone on the ace queen and value bet them. Pretty happy with it. Reads are on point. I'm a huge fan of these like shitty offsuit aces. I think enemies pure steals are okay, I guess, but they just play really fucking poorly post flop, don't they? Out of position. Blind versus blind, we just have to give up a fucking ton. I mean, we need to open them. I'm not saying don't open them, but it's never something that I'm excited to do. I guess we bet this river, not sure we get called by. I think pocket nines and stuff bets the flop. I think he's just going to have ace high an awful lot here. Maybe some really small pairs like pocket sixes or something. Need to decide whether we bet here. If we bet and get raised, then we just can't fold because of his stack size. The nines should be a brick. And we're just going to bet and then not fold and then jam river if he calls and it's not a blue one. Oh, well, in with the pocket with the medium pair here against Card Smith 90. In better raise, we just let the sixes go. And it's unlikely we have the best hand, even if we do. We're not going to realise all the equity given the action to date in the hand. Just about what we can bluff. We have the open ender. He's going to have like a lot of small middle pairs in his range that just check fold. These games really are just about playing like solid tight poker. It's not sexy. It's not going to get you out of your seat. But if you want the best win rate in these games, just play tight, play solid, don't spew, think things through. Just think about your opponent's ranges. I know we're supposed to be doing it anyway, but you'd be surprised how many guys just don't do that. People who come to me get help, and I'm like, right, you need to think about this and that and the other. And I'm saying some pretty like basic poker stuff, and I mean some of the guys are like, it's like they've just opened their eyes to a whole new world of thought processes, and it's poker in 2018. There's just so many guys who like they've learned how to play a pre-flop. They've seen some hand charts. They kind of know what hands to play from what position. They even kind of know what hands they want to be 3-betting. But then it's like that's to the extent of like how they've thought about poker. And I think it's really interesting that with all like the decent free content out there, lots of guys still just aren't that good post-flop at hand reading, at putting their opponents on ranges, about understanding why certain things work really well or don't work really well. And I'm not pretending I'm some poker genius, because I'm absolutely not. I think I'm just like a really solid tight player that, you know, approaches post-flop pretty well. And yeah, I mean, I love it when I work with new people, and I'm saying stuff to them that is just like second nature, and what should be second nature to like any winning player in like 2018. And so many guys out there that just, they've no idea how to approach post flop, despite looking pretty good pre flop. And I guess those would be like the people that get called like the quote unquote bad regs, which is not a phrase I particularly like. It's certainly not how I want to label my potential like people who want to work with me, and I don't mean it in an offensive way. But I guess that's how you would define bad regs these days, like guys who have pretty solid pre-flop ranges, but then have no real idea how to approach post-flop. And those are the guys that I want to try and like reach out to and do some work with, because we can make some good improvements really quickly. Tons of guys that come to me, we make some really quick progress in like sessions 1 and 2, and then by session 3 it's just usually just applying like the finishing touches to get people where they're beating these games and just ready to move on to somebody who's going to be able to teach them how to beat the higher stakes better than I can. Yeah, it's really scary, wouldn't be the right word, but it's quite an eye-opener at just how little work people are put into post-flop. People seem to put all the work into pre-flop. What should my ranges be here? What should my range be here? What should my range be here? And then post-flop, nothing. It's like a massive gap between how good they are pre-flop and how good they are post-flop. It's a real eye-opener. And I guess there'll be like literally hundreds of guys who watch my channel regularly who would kind of fit into that bracket. Who have pre-flop, the stats look really good. Post-flop, the results just aren't getting it done. You know, there'll be tons of those guys out there. Two flush in the blinds, so we're not going to 3-bet the 10s. And we can bet here to try and thin the field a little bit to try and get a handle on where our 2-10 stand. We get raised, it's a super easy fold. We get called by the guy in position, which is like the nut worst scenario, because now we have to check the turn and probably just check fold. Whereas if one of these guys called, we have position on, we can check back turns and decide on some rivers. We get called in 2 spots and the spade comes, that's game over. We're done. We're not putting any more money in this pot unless we hit another spade maybe, or make a 10. I don't think we can bet this river, I think it's going to be too thin. way too thin, but we can consider check calling versus very small bets. But ideally, we're just hoping this goes check, 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 and we win a small one. We give you bets, we're usually going to lose. Doesn't bet, and we drag the pot there. It's actually it would be a defend, I think, for sure versus the bigger stack size. I think it's still a defend versus 30 bigs, but it's not something I'm like really into and really happy about. Like a min raise, a min 3 bet. Guaranteed seeing a set guaranteed to see a flop with call here, but we're not closing the action. We're going to be out of position. I think we'll just let the fives go. That's a pretty big bet. And you have like second pair, no draw, tons of really bad turn cards. This is one of the situations where there's a good chance we might have the best hand, but again, there's like any 6, red, jack, 8, fucking over cards. There's not a lot of good turn cards for us, so we're just going to cut our losses. I'm going to stab once here with the A7 just to try and collect any dead money that's out there, and then give up. You need suck, don't we fucking all? Don't we all? Not just make it a... and try and induce a bluff here. We check twice, it can, looks weak. Oh, wrong bet size. Almost misclicked there, which could have been potentially disastrous. And most of the time you're just not going to be looking to play big pots in these games with most of our range, because typically when you play the big pots in these games it's a cooler type situation, so you don't want to be the guy that's like constantly throwing a party and trying to fucking blow up pots left and right. You know, typically be trying to just keep the pot small, maybe make some small bets on later streets either for thin value or to try and get some folds. But if you like quite often find yourself getting to rivers in 50, 60 blind pots with like really marginal hands, you're doing something wrong. So many times I see people like playing hands and they're like betting and calling and this and that and the other, and they get to the river with like, I don't know, top pair marginal kicker or middle pair good kicker, and they've literally no idea what to do because the pot's just so fucking big. But it's like they don't know what to do on the earlier streets. They don't know whether they should bet or call or bluff or check and things. And so I think the most of the gains, most of that the losing players in these games can make is absolutely by working hard on the post-up game and figuring out why they're finding themselves in so many shitty spots. What are they doing wrong? What are they fundamentally doing wrong? Are they like betting hands that don't warrant betting on early streets? Are they just like not able to fold on early streets because it's like, oh, if I fold this, I'm folding everything, and all the stuff that you hear people saying. Yeah, kind of lost my train of thought again there, but I'm sure you guys understand what I'm talking about. This is one of the most irritating things in poker, when you 3-bet and you get cold called behind you by a fish, and then now what do we do? We're left with ace queen high against 2 fish on this board, and this is a situation where people are like, oh fuck, and then they'll just like fire out like a 13 big blind c-bet and they get jammed on by him or whatever, and they'll just be like, oh fuck, you know, and they blame him for like having a hand that they personally wouldn't have. And it's just not their fault for, you know, they're looking for something else to blame. I mean, it's annoying. We've squeezed ace queen, we've got 2 callers and we braked. There's not an awful lot you can do about that situation. There's no like really cool line to take here. Most of the time it's just going to be, fuck off, we've missed, and move on. I'm afraid. I mean, we have to call this getting like really good odds just to hit an ace, to hit a jack. We're not getting the right odds to chase our gut shot, of course, but for 5 blinds, who knows, we might even hit a queen and win here sometimes. I think people play that post up in a more of like just like winning the pot's important to them rather than making good decisions. They just try and do things to win the pot. I mean, they might sometimes just like take some good lines, but they're not taking a good line because they've thought it through. They're just taking a good line because they've just done whatever they need to do to win the pot. People are too obsessed with winning pots, and they don't put enough thought into just actually making good decisions, and then make winning pots a byproduct of their good decisions. I'm going to stab with the 7s here, I think. Again, just to deny equity to overcards and things that are just going to check back. I'm going to sit out next hands and call it a day for this video. We've done our 30 minutes. Next video is going to be a similar theme to this one. We're going to talk mostly about like how the games play again and any spots that come up where I think people regularly make mistakes, and we're going to try and talk about them and explain why I think the mistakes. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one. There'll be another one out in a couple of days. Bye for now.